Civilization probably started because somebody, somewhere, genuinely just wanted a drink at the end of a long, exhausting day. Not a neat loaf of bread, not a safe pantry quietly stocked against famine, a proper earned buzz. The tidy story we all love to tell ourselves is that humans invented farming mainly to avoid starving. But a quieter, funnier theory says we planted the very first crops for a completely different reason, to brew the first beer. So before you trust the responsible farmer version of history we all learned in school, just stick with me a moment. Because the actual evidence buried out there in the dirt is, frankly, a little bit tipsy. Tonight we follow that evidence. A 13,000-year-old bar tab scratched into stone, the claim that beer came before bread, the monkey inside you that loves a drink, how ale may have raised the first monuments, and finally the honest verdict. Start in Raqefet Cave, over in Israel, where people were already living comfortably around 13,000 years ago. These were the Natufians, still technically hunter-gatherers, not real farmers in any sense we would recognize today. Archaeologists digging carefully through the cave found stone mortars and pestles with a residue that looks like a crude early beer. The brew they were making came from wild barley and wheat, the very same plants growing right nearby the cave. And this matters far more than it first sounds. It is a working brewery thousands of years before anyone farmed those plants on purpose. The party, it seems, showed up on the scene a good while before the farm ever did. Here is the twist that quietly ruins the neat little textbook. The brew clearly predates the farm. The grain was wild, gathered by hand, never planted in any neat human rows at all. So if you could already get drunk without ever farming, then why on earth invent farming at all? Hold that strange thought, because the real answer might turn out to be the whole point of this story. The motive to farm, this theory keeps saying, was never really about bare survival alone. It was about celebration. We domesticated grain to throw a toast, not merely to cook a plain meal. Enter the beer before bread hypothesis, the one pushed hardest by archaeologist Patrick McGovern. His simple but sharp point is that turning grain into alcohol is far easier than turning it into bread. Beer stores calories neatly, it travels in a jug, and it keeps far longer than soft wild grain ever could. It is also genuinely safer to drink than the questionable water pulled straight from a stream. McGovern argues the itch for a reliable batch is exactly what finally made restless foragers stop wandering. The moment you want a steady pour, you rather sensibly start planting a steady supply of grain. And alcohol quietly did a whole string of jobs that plain bread simply could never do. It was a social glue. A single shared cup turned suspicious strangers into a working crew. It was medicine, a rough preservative, and a compact calorie bomb for brutally hard days. So the real reason to farm was never only about food, it was about the party. We did not domesticate grain just to eat it, we domesticated it to celebrate with it. Farming, on this view, basically began as a way to never, ever run out of the good times. But step back for a second and ask, why do we want the buzz in the first place? Biologist Robert Dudley has a neat answer that he calls the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis. Our distant primate ancestors ate ripe, fermenting fruit for the easy calories hiding in the ethanol. We may have actually evolved, over deep time, to quietly like that little hit of alcohol. So your personal fondness for a drink is not some modern, decadent vice at all. It is roughly 10 million years old, baked deep into the ape we still carry inside us. Which means the farming story is not really about humans being naughty after all. It is an old ape urge finally meeting a reliable, grown-on-purpose supply of grain. Once we could grow grain, we could grow the good times right on a fixed schedule. Farming did not invent the craving, it just finally handed the craving a calendar. Now the part that really scales up. At Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, around 11,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers there built enormous stone monuments, bigger than any actual house they lived in. The trash heaps they left behind show they were feasting, probably on beer, at huge gatherings. Moving those giant stones took real teamwork, and that teamwork took feasting to buy. The brew, some archaeologists now argue, was effectively the payroll for the whole project. Follow the chain yourself. Grow grain, brew it, throw a feast, recruit a crew. Then build something none of you could build alone, like a monument to the group. Surplus slowly becomes power, power becomes hierarchy, and hierarchy becomes civilization. The beer did not just taste good, it may genuinely have been the project manager. Picture a potluck where somebody, very deliberately, brought the keg for everyone. So did we farm just to get drunk? Probably not just. Most archaeologists still say plain calories and safety led the way. The beer-only version is simply too clean to be the whole complicated truth. But the alcohol story is no joke. It was a catalyst, a quiet co-pilot all along. Maybe it was the very reason strangers agreed to work together at all. Civilization was likely a potluck, and someone brought the keg on purpose. We did not merely farm to live, we farmed to live a little. Next time you buy a six-pack, remember the first farms may have been planted for the very same reason. Which part surprised you most, the cave beer, the monkey, or the monuments? Comment a number and subscribe.